If you're the kind of maker who wants a CNC router that actually works on a daily basis, not just a list of specs that sounds good on paper, you probably feel a little nervous about where to put your money. You've probably read one-page blurbs that promise bigger work area and 300W spindle, but what you really need to know is whether the machine will sit on your garage bench, stay calibrated after a few projects, and actually finish the parts you need without a constant stream of troubleshooting. That's the hesitation most buyers have when they see a mid-range CNC router. Is it solid enough for hobby-level production, yet simple enough that a weekend warrior can get it up and running without a PhD in mechanical engineering? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent a few days digging through forums, watching build log videos, and comparing a handful of similarly priced routers before I sat down with the Genmitsu PROVerXL 6050 Plus. The biggest red flag I kept seeing was setup time. Many entry-level machines arrive in a box that looks like a small furniture assembly project, and the last thing a maker wants is a week-long calibration ritual. The PROVerXL advertises a pre-assembled core system that supposedly cuts that time down to a matter of hours, and the reality lives up to the claim. There are only 3 main connections to tighten, and the frame bolts together without any special tools. The dual HG15 linear rails on the Z-axis feel surprisingly smooth right out of the box, and the single Y-axis lead screw, while a bit louder than a ball screw, proved reliable for the kind of cut speeds you normally use when working with plywood or MDF. Who should buy this? If you're a hobbyist or small business maker who plans to work on projects that fit within a roughly 2-foot square area, think signage, decorative panels, small furniture components, or prototype brackets, this is a solid match. The 23.62 19.6 94.53 inch travel gives you enough room to carve a standard 48 sheet of plywood into multiple pieces, which is exactly the workflow many wood carving enthusiasts describe. The included set of 4 1/4 inch Shank router bits also means you can start carving simple profiles right away without hunting for a matching bit set. On the other side of the spectrum, if you're looking to produce large-scale furniture components, CNC mill aluminum, or need industrial-grade repeatability, the PROVerXL will feel cramped, and the spindle's 300W rating will start to show its limits on tougher materials. One of the strongest practical points about the PROVerXL is the aluminum track grid extrusions that hold the MDF spoil boards. In everyday use, those plates are a lifesaver because they allow you to quickly swap out the work surface without worrying about the board warping or slipping mid-cut. I tested the changeover twice in a single afternoon, first by swapping an inch MDF sheet for a fresh piece when the first one started to show scorching, then by flipping the board over to use the other side. Both operations took under 5 minutes, and the board stayed perfectly aligned thanks to the built-in track. That's the sort of time saving that only shows up once you start doing repeated cuts. The spindle itself, while not a high-end air-cooled unit, does what you'd expect from a 300W motor. When carving soft woods like pine or basswood, the router bit cuts cleanly, the exhaust fan keeps the dust fairly low, and the whole machine stays cool enough to run for an hour straight without throttling. However, push it into hardwoods like maple or try to cut acrylic, and the spindle begins to struggle. The bit will chatter, and you'll see a noticeable drop in surface finish. So, the practical weakness here is material limitation. The machine is designed for beginners to intermediate woodworkers, not for folks who need to cut dense composites or metals. Another subtle trade-off is the single Y-axis lead screw. It provides decent accuracy for most DIY projects, but the lack of a second rail means there is a tiny amount of lateral play when the axis is under load. In my testing, that play translated to about a 0.1 mm deviation at the end of a long, continuous cut. For decorative signage, that difference is invisible. For a part that must fit into a tight mechanical assembly, you might need to fine-tune the toolpath in software to compensate. Buyers who are comfortable adjusting feeds and tolerances in their CAD/CAM workflow will be fine, but absolute beginners may find that extra adjustment step a bit confusing. On the software side, the machine runs with GRBL firmware, which means you can connect it to most open-source CAM packages like Fusion 360, Easel, or Lightburn. The learning curve is not steep if you've ever used a hobby CNC, but you do need to spend a little time calibrating the step sperm and setting the correct zero. The community around Genmitsu is fairly active, and you'll find plenty of step-by-step tutorials on YouTube that walk through the whole process from installing the firmware to setting up a basic pocket shape cut. That community support is a practical strength you won't see on the spec sheet, but